Welcome to Caritech's Introduction to JavaScript session, brought to you by Penang STEM 4.0 Learning from Home session, together with Penang Tech Dome. So, I am Sam and I will be your guide today. So, as I mentioned, we are talking about JavaScript, so let's hop to it. Quick overview. I will begin with an introduction, who we are, what is web programming, and then I will get straight into JavaScript. Right, and then we'll talk a little bit about JQuery, a good friend of JavaScript's, and then we'll do some exercises. Finger exercises mostly. Okay, and then we will get to the summary. Okay, and then you have a chance to ask some questions. Okay, all right. So who are we here at Caritech? We are a dedicated software development and web design studio. We're based in Penang, and we specialize in developing web-based and mobile applications. So that's like websites and apps. Okay, we also do a lot of cloud-based business management systems and the occasional IT training like this one. Okay, right, so what is web programming? Web programming is basically a language that we use to talk to the computers, to the robots. Okay, so in future, if you're gonna have a robot dog, you better learn some web programming languages, or at least a programming language. Okay, so web programming refers to the language we use to control computers and servers. Okay, so the most common web programming languages are HTML. So if you remember from a previous session, we talked about HTML. Okay, CSS, JavaScript, and there's some other ones like Perl and PHP. You may have come across them, or you may have used them already. If so, good for you. Alright, so yes, web programming is basically how we control everything that we see on the internets, on your phone, and on the computer, and many other places. But these are the main ones. So here we have a whole bunch of random icons. What do they mean? This is just to give you an idea of the number of languages that are out there. So I don't mean like in the real world we have different languages that we use to communicate with each other, and in this case we have before us a number of languages that we use to communicate with the computer or other machines, things that controlled digitally. So just like in the real world, how we have different languages for different people who think differently, we have different programming languages for different functions, and because just people think differently and people interpret things differently. So this is just to give you a rough idea of the type of languages that you may need and may be good to learn, but choose wisely, because of course every language has its pros and cons, is different. Some are easier to learn, some are more in-depth and powerful. Okay, so today we were talking about this one here, this one, JavaScript. Okay, it's a little Superman. Okay, so how super is it really? So first we'll talk a little bit about front end and back end. So what is the front end and the back end when it comes to web programming? So web programming is unique in that it requires two sides of the coin. Okay, so the front end, the languages that control the front end, control the things that you see, the public sees. We call the client side. Okay, so this is what you see and what you are looking at now on your screen, on your phone. That is the front end. Okay, so JavaScript is one of them. See that little JS there? Okay, and the back end refers to the guys that work behind the scenes, backstage. They make sure everything is ready and available. Okay, and it stores all the data. So they store in this thing called a database, which you may have heard. Okay, so again, you recognize can you see where JavaScript is? Where is it hiding? Where is it hiding? Okay, it's there on the left. Okay, so again, it is a front-end language, so that means it works on your browser, on your computer, and it controls what you see. Alright, JavaScript, here we go. Bam. So what is JavaScript? It is a client-side language, as I alluded to just now, which means that it runs on your computer in your browser. Okay, so as opposed to on the server, which is that computer out there in the sky. No, not really. So when I say a cloud, I'm sure you guys are already aware of this, but when we say cloud-based, it's not actually in a cloud, it's just in someone else's computer. And there are lots of these computers all chained together so that it forms like a big web. So that's why it's called the internet. So I guess now that the web is so thick and dense, it looks more like a cloud, I guess. Okay, so really they're just lots of other people's computers which allow public access. Okay, so there's information stored on these servers that is available to everyone in the world. Okay, as opposed to the stuff that's stored just on your computer. Okay, that only you see. Okay, so all modern pages, websites use JavaScript. So like that website, that you visit, with the people, pictures, people, Facebook, and like Instagram, so those all use JavaScript. Okay, sites like Google, all those browsers, they all have JavaScript on them. When your internet dies and you play that little dinosaur jumping game, that's in JavaScript. Yeah, cool, right? Okay, so basically what we learned last time, so HTML and CSS, we learned that in the previous session. So and as our friend and fellow trainer Max mentioned, HTML and CSS are like the person. They are the person and the clothes they wear. Okay, whereas JavaScript is how loudly this person speaks or what sort of actions they do. They're running, they're jumping. This is what JavaScript can do. Okay, so JavaScript has many powerful and interactive features. All right, like it is responsible for shopping carts. So when you go on Shopee, Lazada, you can you buy things, you put things in that shopping cart and it remembers it. Okay, so that is JavaScript. And when you type your address into your form, when you type in your postcode, you try and put in a letter and the form goes no alphabet allowed, only numbers. That is a form validation. Okay, only numbers or only something. Okay, it ensures that that email address you're putting in looks like an email address. Okay, so that's JavaScript. Okay, also does some calculations. Big whoop. And it does special graphics and text effects. All right, which we will see later. That's pretty cool, a fun little thing that it does. Okay, and it does swapping, it changes things, it morphs things. All right, but first a bit of history. So back in the early to mid 90s, 1995, a long time ago, in a galaxy far away, there were two sides: the empire of Microsoft and Netscape. Okay, so there were these two key players that were striving at the forefront of the internet, at the forefront of technology, of websites and all things to do with the cloud. Okay, so back then it wasn't called the cloud, and both Microsoft and Netscape were thinking, ooh, we need a way for people to be able to surf the web. Yep, we need a way for people to find this information that we are putting up there. Okay, so they both said, okay, we're gonna do this. Let's make our mark. Let's create these really cool things we call browsers. Okay, so that's where Internet Explorer and Netscape Navigator came about. So you may still recognize this E here because it's become Edge now, but you probably don't. Most of you probably don't remember this whole thing. Okay, so because the war ended way back when. So maybe some of you weren't even born then. I don't know. Okay, so in September of 1995, a Netscape programmer by the name of Brendan Eich developed a new scripting language in just 10 days. Okay, so he wanted to create a language that could bridge the gap. Okay, so it was originally called Mocha because I guess his favorite drink was mocha, probably heavy on the coffee side. Okay, but it became known as LiveScript, and then eventually it became JavaScript. Yeah. Okay, so this was back in the old days, the days of yore, when it was wild. Browsers were browsers, and yeah. Anyway, so we all know how that ended. They both died, and Google Chrome took over the world. Okay, see that in the back? You recognize that? Recognize that guy? He's still around. It's Opera. Okay, so now let's go on to some features of JavaScript. So JavaScript, what is JavaScript? Now, don't be alarmed if you don't understand half of these. So even though they are in English, they are not really in English. They're English words, but yeah, they only make sense if you know a little bit. But don't worry, I will explain in detail. It will make sense. But let's just quickly go through them. So JavaScript is an object-oriented script language, whatever that means. Okay, and it's good at handling events. What? Events? Yeah, so we're talking about computer kind of events. Don't worry, I will explain that. And it is client-side technology, and it's good at looping. Okay, whatever that means. Okay, here's something you might understand. So okay, it's lightweight and delicate. Okay, so what that means is very compact. You don't have to save a lot of code. It's not very chunky. It's quite delicate. It's quite easy, and it's quite powerful. Okay, so it's good in that sense. Okay, because it draws on a deep well, a library, a powerful foundation. Okay, and it has, if you do any coding, if you've done some coding before, you know this thing called if-else statements. Yes, so JavaScript handles that quite well, and it has the ability to perform. I certainly hope so. Okay, so scripting language. So as I mentioned just now, JavaScript is an object-oriented script language. So what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it doesn't mean. Well, actually, I'll tell you what it means. What it can't do. Okay, so what JavaScript can't do is it can't communicate with your operating system. Okay, it doesn't talk to your Windows or your iOS. Okay, it just works in your browser. Okay, so what that means is that it is neutral. It can work in any browser, right? Any browser that has interpreter for JavaScript. Okay, so it doesn't care if you're running the latest Windows or the oldest Linux, Ubuntu, whatever it was. It doesn't care, and it can't access your local files. So don't worry, it can't hack you. Can't hack your local computer. You're safe for now. Okay, and it also can't directly access a database. So what does that mean? A database. So I mentioned servers just now. So up in the cloud is some things stored up there in things called databases. Okay, so JavaScript doesn't care about those guys. All right, it just takes whatever data you have or whatever data is coming its way. It does not access databases directly. Okay, and it also can't talk to hardware. So it can't talk to that 3D printer of yours. Nope, sorry. JavaScript no can do. Okay, so JavaScript is a very specialized language, very specialized web programming language, and it's client side, as I mentioned, and it works on document oriented models. Okay, the DOMs will make sense a bit later. Okay, don't worry so much about that now. Okay, so advantages and disadvantages of JavaScript. JavaScript runs fast, so like I mentioned, it is lightweight, it is compact, so it works very quickly because it doesn't need to wait for the server to get back to it. It just goes boom, done. Okay, it's platform independent, as I mentioned just now, so regardless of what operating system, what browser you're using, it should work just fine. Okay, and it's relatively easy to learn. I guess that is a relative thing, but yes, on a scale of most web programming languages, it's not too difficult. Okay, and it increases interactivity, and it's possible to create very, very powerful and efficient interfaces. So like you can have drag and drops, you have sliders. It makes things easy to use. Okay, disadvantages: it runs on a single thread. So what is a single thread? Basically, it doesn't multitask at all. Okay, so multi-threading is where a computer or a processor can run multiple things at the same time. All right. So JavaScript is no, only one thread at a time, one task. Okay, no multitask. No. Okay. Okay. Also, it does not allow the reading or writing of files. Yeah, just one of the things. Okay, and it doesn't do anything with networks. Like I mentioned, doesn't talk to networks. Doesn't care what's out there. Okay, doesn't care about the truth. Okay, and another thing is code is not hidden. So like a lot of web programming languages like HTML and CSS, the code is visible. So yeah, you can always just hit F12. You want to do it now? You can hit F12 on your computer. I don't know what it is on your phone, but yeah, on your computer you can view the source and you can see all that JavaScript code in all its glory. Okay, so where is JavaScript kept? Okay, I don't know if you've ever asked that question. I guess I have now. So JavaScript lives together with HTML and CSS. Isn't that nice? Oh, buddies. Okay, so JavaScript basically gets inserted in between these tags. Okay, you recognize these? You recognize these tags? These tags, they look familiar? Yeah? It's because it's the angular bracket of HTML. Okay, so when you want to stick JavaScript in there, you just put those opening and closing tags. You guys remember that from the HTML? And then you put script, and then your computer will know that, oh, okay, whatever is in between these opening and closing script tags is JavaScript. Okay. Yeah, you can also insert it externally via this code here. Okay, that's all you really need to know. Okay, so I mentioned the document object models just now, DOMs. Okay, so it might take a little bit to wrap your head around this concept, but basically, okay, this is what a DOM is on the left. So it starts with the entire document. Okay, and then in the document you have the root element, which is the HTML. Okay, and inside the HTML you have different sections, right? As I mentioned, in HTML you have the header, the body, the title, all right. So you see how there's a hierarchy, there is an order, right? You start from the top. So you have the headmaster, and then you have the vice headmaster and the discipline master, and then you have the senior teacher, the not so, you get the idea. I don't know the exact organizational chart of your school, but that's a rough idea. Okay, so here it is a tree. So these are the branches of the tree. Okay, and okay, so what does this all mean? This means that JavaScript treats your entire document and its objects. It can interact with individual objects differently. Okay, so the way that you code is affected by which type of object you are interacting with. Okay, so you need to know which part of the tree you are intending to make a change on or set, right? So if you're going for this part, for the top, or one of the lower branches, you can access it by using JavaScript to indicate exactly where you want to cause an effect. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about the DOMs. So as I mentioned, inside the document, based on the order, JavaScript can change things, can do things, so it can go into the individual object and affect just that object, only that object. Okay, that's pretty much what that means. Okay, so in order to make its way along the tree, in order for the computer to know which part of the tree you're talking about, are you talking about the leaves, you're talking about the twigs, or are you talking about the trunk, right? You need to indicate the name. Okay, so like everything in life, everything has a name, so you just need to know how to get the right name. Okay, so that's all it is. So once you know the name of the object, and then you can use the JavaScript to change it or do something to it. Okay, so these are some code. We're starting to get into code now. So document dot get element by tag. So if you recognize some of these words, these are English words, yes, but they're written in a funny way so that only the computers will understand it. Okay, so this in the red is how we code. So this will be what we put into the documents that we send up to the server, into the internets. Okay, so document.getElements by tag name header. Okay, so that is indicating that we are setting this header tag, and we will use this to locate the header tag. Okay, so what happens after we locate it? Then we use our commands. Okay, so JavaScript has, like HTML, a number of commands, and these commands are shortened English words. So variable is a var. Okay, so here are some examples. So variables, you declare certain variables. Okay, so these are defining them. Okay, so you'll understand what variables are later. Basically, they are things in the document that you will refer to. So like say var car name, and then you give it a name. So the car name is this. Okay, so anytime I mention the variable car name, it will refer to whatever I have set it. Okay, it'll make more sense later, maybe. Okay, so here is another JavaScript command called function. Okay, a very powerful one. Okay, so in order to cause an effect, you need to use the function command. Okay, so use it like this: function name and parameter. Okay, so depending on the function, it can have a number of parameters. Okay, so here are some examples of what it looks like. Okay, so button on click, function name something something, and then you put the text of your button. So as I mentioned, so if you remember your HTML, this is button. So the thing in the red is the JavaScript. Okay, the rest of it is all HTML stuff you learned last time. Okay, so button creates a button, and inside the button will be press it. Okay, and then you can add a special function to this button. Okay, all right, so let's find out a bit more. Oh, what's this? So let's start with the coding. Okay, so one of the things that JavaScript does is it can cause a trigger, like a gun. Pew, pew. Okay, so what that means is when you trigger something, it makes something else happen. Okay, so here is an example. Okay, so when I click this magic button here, it will create this little box that says open sesame. See this right here? Between the scripts, not the band, the JavaScript. Okay, all right, so here now you have a chance to do a little bit of exercise, so give that a try. See if you can use that link in your worksheet. Go to the link and feel free to type in your own stuff. So the HTML, all that stuff should already be in there, so you don't need to worry about too much about that. But what you can type is you can type in script and close script, and in between the script you want to type something that looks a bit like this. All right, so you want to use the function command. Hint: use the function command. Okay, and then at this juncture, I'm sure someone will guide you through. But basically, what you want to do is you want to create a button. So you already have the button here. See, click me. So this was created with HTML. Okay, and now you want to do something to that button. You want to do something to the button so that when you click the button, it will have this effect. Okay. All right, give it a try. So remember, hit run so that your code comes through. Okay, hit run. Your code should appear, and then when you click on this, hit it, you will get this message in your browser. Cool, right? Okay, we are gonna move it along. Oh, what's this? So much text. Okay, so this is a condition, like I mentioned. So you remember I mentioned earlier those if and else statements. Okay, so basically what happens is you have a set of conditions. So you say if A happens, then do this. If A did not happen, then else do this. Okay, go to B. Okay, so and then you can have conditions. So B again, if B is a yes, then you do something else. But if B is a no, then whatever, forget about it. It's not worth it. Okay, so JavaScript also has if and if-else statements. Okay, so here are some just some examples of how you would use it. So if, and then you put the condition. So if something occurs, do this. Okay, so if something occurs, do this, else. So if this did not occur, something else occurs, do this. Okay, and it goes on and on. You can set a number of if-else statements. Okay, so here is an example. So what we've done here is use the JavaScript to set the variable. Okay, so the variable is this button called greeting. Okay, and another variable is time. Okay, so basically this if-else statement, see this? What it is doing is it is indicating that if the time is this parameter, then do this. If the time is this parameter, then do this. Okay, so and then else. So if it is neither of these, then do this. Okay, so basically what happens is when you hit that button, you should get something. Okay, but that something could be one of three things, one of three conditions. Okay, so depending on which condition is met, you will get a different response. Getting smart, isn't it? Okay, go ahead, give it a try. So first make that button, name the button whatever you like. Okay, and then remember, use the script opening and closing tags and set an if and else statement. So if this, then do this. So you want to have an if, and then you probably have to have a function. Okay, so let's go back and have a look. So if this in brackets, then you say this variable. So this variable, remember, variable greeting is this. Okay, here I'll give you a moment to let that sink in. Okay, so what you can do with this is in this case, what we're doing is we are basing it on the time of the day, perhaps. So at different times, at different days, you will use a different greeting. And so let's teach the computer to do the same thing. So in the morning, the computer will say good morning, and in the afternoon, it will say good afternoon. Okay, so selamat pagi, selamat petang. Okay, so you have conditions. Okay, so these, if used creatively, you can do any number of things. Any number. Whoa, what's happening there? Oh, my eyes. Oh, I'm getting dizzy. Oh, spinning loops. Okay, so now we move on and we are looking at loops. So JavaScript is pretty funky. You can do loops. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that you can use it to create, based on a certain formula, you can get it to repeat the same formula over and over again, until it gets dizzy and it collapses. I'm just kidding. So you can get it to do the same thing over and over again in repetition, which is called a loop. Okay, but you can, of course, please set the conditions so that it is within a range. So if you say you want it to go round and round 1,000 times, then you just set it, to 1,000. Okay, so increment means that it will go more and more and more and more. Okay, so there are interesting things you can do, very interesting things. Like what you can do is you can get it to chain certain things, to create things like this. Okay, so you can get it to automatically count upwards or count downwards. Okay, so you can use the for command to create some loops. Okay, so here, see, you only put one line of code, 2 lines of code. and you can get any number of numbers. All right, so you just keep going. Okay, so give that a try. Here's a chance for you. Do a little bit of an exercise. See if you can make it loop. Like I said, try to set a limit on your loop so that it doesn't just go for forever and crash your computer. Because I'm sure you guys have heard of infinite loops. Yeah, best not to try it. But don't worry. Computers are smarter than now. They will realize that if you are trying to break them, they will stop your silly infinite loop. So good luck with that. Do try. But in the meantime, maybe just try and get it to count upwards, maybe to 10. All right. So again, yeah, you can refer to this. Okay, or you can figure out on your own. You're smart. You get the idea. Okay, moving along. Morphing text. Okay, so another function that JavaScript does is it changes things. It makes things slightly different. Same but different. Okay, so JavaScript can change HTML. Okay, so why do you want to do this, you ask? Why not just change it directly in HTML? Well, that's because you want to be fancy, you know. You don't want to do things the old-fashioned way. You want to do it. No, I'm just kidding. There are a number of reasons why you might use JavaScript. Partly because it could be easier. Another part could be because you only want to change it temporarily, maybe. Or you want to do something in a specific place or manner. Okay, so yeah, you can modify it with JavaScript. Okay, and another way you can modify it is you can cause an effect on it. So in this case, in this example here, we are using JavaScript to do some math. Yes. Okay, so here we're using this multiply feature. Okay, so go ahead and try it, and try and use JavaScript to change this HTML word, this text here, test. When you hit the button, it will change it. Okay, so try and do that. So try and use the JavaScript to change this text by setting it on this button. So when you hit the button, then this text will change to something else. Okay, let's try and do that. It's a little bit trickier, but I think you got what it takes. You can do it. You can do the thing. All right. Now I'll give you a little moment to let that sink in. Give it a try. You can always cheat and go back to here. Check it out. See if you make sense of it. Okay. All right. Ooh, what's happening here? So as you can see, it is the exact same person, but her hair is different. So here's another thing that JavaScript can do: style change. Yeah. Don't you wish you could do this in real life? Just at a click of a button, just bam, hair color change. Okay, so in real life you probably have to, spend a couple of hours, dye it. Okay, but not in web programming. Okay, so JavaScript can change the CSS as well. So just like it can change HTML, it can change CSS. So again, you can modify the style like so. Okay, so first, as you recognize this is the call sign. So this is how JavaScript finds things. So JavaScript has found the style property and it wants to change it. Okay, so it sees this blue thing and it wants to paint it black. Okay, because it was, I don't know, I'm just kidding. I want to paint it blue. Okay, so here in this example we have something like this text that says hello world, and we now want to change it to a different color. Okay, and we can even change the font as well. Okay, so you see this between the scripts you have these commands. Okay, so basically it is telling it to find this particular piece of code, P2, and to change it. So it wants to change the color, it wants to change the font, and it wants to change the size. So here is the before, and here is the after effect. Okay, you see the difference? Okay, looks different, right? Okay, so there you go. That's JavaScript for you. So now is a chance for you to give that a shot. So go ahead, change this HTML text with JavaScript. So yeah, go ahead, modify it. You don't have to change it to blue. You can change it to pink, purple, or whatever color you can imagine. Okay, and do note that JavaScript recognizes color words as well. But again, if you want to specify a particular hue of blue, hey, that rhymes. Yeah, then you will need the color codes. Remember the color codes that we covered? If not, don't worry. Just use words for now. So in this area, you put red or purple. Okay, and it should change it for you. Okay, now we will talk about this thing called JQuery. Alright, let's do more. So what is JQuery? So JQuery is basically a JavaScript library that makes the scripting even easier. Okay, so JQuery has basically compiled a bunch of commands into a library. Okay, so it makes it a lot easier. So when you want to do more complicated effects, you don't need to code them one by one. You just need to call the item inside the jQuery library. Okay, so that's pretty much what it is. So some clever guy decided that, hey, we do these things often enough, so let's turn it into a set of commands, a string, a sequence. Okay, so if JavaScript commands are the individual books, then jQuery is the whole damn library. Okay, so instead of having to write one book at a time, you can call this entire row, something like that. Okay, so here is an example of just using JavaScript versus jQuery. Okay, so you see this is JavaScript, blah 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 equals blah. Okay, but for jQuery you just go okay. Alright, and then in this example, again we have 3 lines of code in JavaScript, but in jQuery it is just one single line. Okay, so of course at this point it probably look a bit alarming, a little bit confusing to you, because of course you have no idea how to code in jQuery, but just so you're aware, it is a much faster way of doing things. Okay, and let's have a look. So in jQuery you use this thing called selectors. I won't go into too much detail, but you'll see this cache sign a lot basically. Okay, so the cache sign is used to define and access jQuery, the library. So anytime you see this cache, this ka-ching, it is jQuery at work. Okay, so don't worry, it's still JavaScript, it's just next level JavaScript. Alright, so yes, here is some more jQuery, just some examples of jQuery code. Right. So yes, we're talking a little bit more about jQuery, so I'm just gonna skip over this. Okay, so you need jQuery, well, you don't really need it, but it's good to know, especially when you want to do more complicated things, like you want to control events. Okay, so when I say events, I don't mean the next party that's coming up. I mean events on your computer. Okay, so here are some examples of events that will happen on your computer. So something changes, you click something or you hover over something, So have you ever wondered, you know, how the computer does these things? Here is how. Okay, so it knows where your mouse goes. So when you hover over a particular element, it can call up a certain function. Okay, and there's other ones, submit and toggle. Okay, so here is a sample of the code. See the cache? Remember the cache? That is JQuery, and it is still between the JavaScript opening and closing tags. Okay, so if you're a game, give that a shot. Try out some powerful JQuery. Okay, or if you like, you can still do it in JavaScript. Okay, so what I want you to do now is just be able to write something in there. Write something in this field. So you've created a field, and now you want to write, and then you hit enter. So give it a shot, see what happens. Okay, let's do an exercise now. So use this. So you create this little click me button, okay, and you want to use JQuery to do something, okay. So whenever you click it, you want something to occur. So the event is the clicking, and you want it to have an effect, okay. So you notice this area is blank. You gotta fill this out, okay. So here, take a moment, try it out, see if you can make something happen. Okay, create a little alert. Okay, alright. Now this is the fun part, the interesting part. It's animation time. Okay, so like I mentioned, JavaScript is very good at doing animations. Okay, so here are some examples of animation commands. Okay, so as I mentioned, these are in JQuery. So show is hide, this fade in, fade out, slide up, slide down. So if you've used programs like you know, like if you use the Google Slides or PowerPoint presentation, you will know that you can animate text or images in your PowerPoint presentation, right? So these are the commands that will do the same on your website. Okay. All right. So here is exercise time. So now that you've got, so first create these two buttons, okay, and try and make this text disappear and reappear. Okay, and how you want it to appear and reappear is up to you. Do you want it to fade in? Do you want it to fly in? Okay, you can, it is up to you. So give that a shot. So remember, use the script opening and closing tags, and just put in your code in there, hit run, and then you can try, give it a shot. Click on these buttons and see if you achieve the desired effect. Okay, yeah, and see, you can try out different animations, different commands. So remember these commands, give them a shot. Okay, see if you can get fancy. Okay. Yes, excellent. So the master you are now. Okay, so we've covered quite a number of JavaScript commands, but wait, there's more. Yes, when will it end? One final exercise to exercise all of those wonderful JavaScript and jQuery commands that you just learned. I want you to create a calculator. It doesn't sound too hard, right? That doesn't sound too hard at all. Okay, so basically you just need 3 input fields. Okay, so just stick with addition for now. What you want to do is you want to be able to enter whatever you like, any number in the field, in field 1 and field 2, and field 3 should give you the total of field 1 and field 2. Okay, so sounds simple, but might not be that simple. Okay, so you can refer back to the previous exercises and the previous commands that you have used in order to achieve this. Okay, but don't worry, this is the final exercise. It's the final. Okay, yeah. Okay, and yeah, you can set it so that it only calculates when you hit this button here. Okay, function. Okay, so presumably our Sifu Max will be walking you through this part of the exercise. Alright, and once you're happy with that, we'll just do a little summary. Okay, so as I mentioned, JavaScript is a most powerful web programming language, and it makes websites come to life. Okay, so it how does it do that? It has a number of very fun and interactive features. Okay, and as we mentioned, JQuery is an even more powerful version of JavaScript. It is a library of JavaScript functions. Okay, so a fun thing that you can look into is JavaScript animations. So the animations that we mentioned are just scratching the surface. Okay, it's endless the number of things you can do with this animation. You can create fun fractal art like this. Okay, and this isn't even the animated part, this is just the art part. Okay, so the potential is endless. Alright, and I think that about sums it up. Okay, so we're on to the question section. Okay, and that concludes our presentation for today. Hope you had fun learning about JavaScript, and please stay tuned to our websites for more fun courses here at Caritech. Alright, Sam signing out, and catch you later.